Hello, I'm Gary Stearman, and this is Prophecy Watchers. It's good to be with you again. We have a very special guest. We've known him for quite a while, and we've watched what he does. And let me introduce you to, let me call him what his book cover calls him, Dr. Andrew M. Woods. But no, to us, he's Andy Woods. Andy, welcome back to Prophecy Watch.
Hey, Gary, great. It's been a little while, but it's wonderful to be
been
here. Yeah, thanks for having me.
And I always like to talk with you because you bring things down to such a wonderful academic yet common sense level that I have no problem at all understanding and fitting into the scheme of things. And your book, The Coming Kingdom, I think may be unique in that it takes problems that Christians will meet from day to day or in fellowship, on Sunday. Questions rise, and how can I answer this question about the rapture or about the kingdom? And by the way, the name of Andy's book is The Coming Kingdom, and you talk about complete. It is complete indeed. You did a wonderful work.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate you reading it. A lot of people who have interviewed me on this, they haven't read it. It becomes apparent. You're one of the few that actually read the book before you interview somebody. So I appreciate you saying that.
Well, I want to know what questions to ask, and here's the one. There is uncertainty today. We have economic uncertainty. We have a couple of war fronts. We have enemies cropping up, and the world is really a little bit scary right now. And for Christians are asking the question, what must I do? What should I be doing? What does the Bible suggest? Where am I going? And all these questions come right back to one's concept of the kingdom of God.
Right.
And before we came on, we were talking about Matthew chapter 6 and the Lord's Prayer, and where he says, "Thy kingdom come." When we pray, "Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done." What are we talking about here? What are we praying for?
Well, what's interesting is when Jesus, taught the disciples to pray, because sometimes this has been called the Lord's Prayer, but really this couldn't be the Lord's Prayer because he says, "Forgive us our debts." I don't know if Jesus had any debts or sins, right? Of course he didn't. If you want the Lord's Prayer, that's in John 17. That's what he prayed, prior to the cross. But there he's teaching the disciples to pray. And the way I'm understanding that, and people will find it over in Matthew 6, verses 9 through 13, what people will discover there, if they understand what subsequent and prior scripture really has revealed about the kingdom, is it's basically three clauses. They're different ways of asking for the Lord's kingdom to come one day. And subsequent to that are three interim requests that we have as human beings until the kingdom comes. So just sort of walking through it, he opens up here in Matthew chapter 6, verse 9, and he says, "Therefore in this manner pray, Our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be your name." All you have to do is think about what the Old Testament reveals concerning the time in history when God's name would be revered again, because it's clearly not being revered today. All you got to do is flip on TV and you see the Lord's name used in vain constantly. So pray for the time in history for the Lord's name to be revered. If people would cross-reference Isaiah 29, we don't have to turn there, but Isaiah 29:23 and Isaiah 36, verse 23, they would see that the time in history when the Lord's name will be respected again on all the earth is when the kingdom comes. So in other words, that's another way of saying, "Bring in the kingdom, Lord." And then the next clause, "Thy kingdom come." Unfortunately, what people do is they just read in their own definition of the word kingdom there. It's the Greek word basileia. You'll notice it's not defined. So I can't understand that term basileia unless I've read everything that God has said in the Old Testament concerning the kingdom. So the prophets all lay out the kingdom. It's the time in history where there's no more war. Agricultural prosperity has broken out all over all the earth. Jesus is ruling and reigning with a rod of iron from Jerusalem, etc. So that's what I'm to read into this expression kingdom. And obviously it wasn't present when Jesus articulated this, or else he wouldn't be telling us to pray for the kingdom to come. So pray for the time in history for the kingdom to materialize exactly like the Old Testament says. That's a synonym for what precedes it. Pray for the time in history for God's name to be revered again. And then the next expression, pray for the time in history where your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So pray for the time in history to come where God's rule, which is unchallenged in heaven, will come to the earth. That's another way of saying pray for the coming of the kingdom.
Now, when I pray that way, my mind can hardly take in all that it means for the kingdom to come. It's huge. And, by the way, highly detailed. In other words, you can have a wrong opinion about the kingdom and about what it amounts to today as we go about our lives. We need to have a particular concept of where we relate to the kingdom. When's it coming? What are we going to do? And your book, I think, is remarkable in that it's incredibly detailed, but also easy to read. If you just read things in a 1, 2, 3 order, you've got an amazingly, what should I say, detail-oriented mind. I mean, you put things in a way that it's easy to see how they fit. I should say easy, but also complicated, because the concept of the kingdom is somewhat complex.
Yeah, and it's really a theme that goes from Genesis to Revelation. And if you can get this theme of the kingdom down, the Bible will start to fit into position, including the little details like the disciples' prayer, which I prayed for years and years, just rote memorization, not understanding it. And Jesus, in this same Sermon on the Mount, tells us not to pray that way. Don't just babble, but understand what it is you're praying. So this prayer fits into that theme of the kingdom. So it's 3 clauses asking for the kingdom to come. Well, until the kingdom comes, we have 3 needs. Needs that I have now that won't exist once the kingdom comes.
Yes.
So the remaining 3 clauses there are praying for those needs. So the next clause is give us this day our daily bread, financial provision, physical provision. We won't have to pray that once the kingdom comes because the whole earth will be prosperous. And then forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. I do things in my sin nature, even as a Christian, which take me out of fellowship with God. And once the kingdom comes, I'll be in a resurrected body. And I won't have to pray that anymore. So I need to pray for fellowship to be restored with God when I sin. Not my position, but my enjoyment of God. There's a big difference between position and fellowship. And then the last clause is lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. I think it was Hal Lindsey years ago that wrote a book called Satan is Alive and Well on Planet Earth.
Yes.
1 Peter 5, 8, and 9 tells us he roams about like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour, so we need protection from him. Well, I won't have that need once the kingdom comes, because the book of Revelation tells me he will be in the abyss, for 1,000 years. So what I just kind of went over there at your invitation is just a simple way to understand the disciples' prayer in light of the larger theme of the scripture, which is the kingdom.
Andy Woods, and by the way, Andy has contributed to our magazine, The Prophecy Watcher, from time to time, and you are invited to submit articles.
Well, thank you.
Because I love to read them, and I know you will love it too. Here's how you can get your copy.
10 years ago, we began an exciting journey, a mission dedicated to spreading the good news of the soon return of Jesus. Our passion for teaching Bible prophecy is what drives us to warn the world of events that are soon to come. In the last 2 years, tens of thousands of prophecy watchers from all over the world have subscribed to our monthly magazine, The Prophecy Watcher. Our first Too Good to Be True offer came with 8 bonus DVDs. Our second offer came with 10 bonus DVDs. But our 10-year anniversary offer is even better. 12 DVDs on Bible prophecy can be yours when you subscribe to our 48-page full-color magazine for just 1 year, print or digital format, all for a gift of $50, with shipping included in the USA. Recent events have turned the world upside down. The COVID-19 pandemic was followed by Russia's war in Ukraine, all overshadowed by the horrific October 7th tragedy in Israel. The prophets of the Bible predicted a series of end-time wars, and we're seeing the final pieces of the puzzle fall into place. Russia, China, Iran, Syria, Turkey. The enemies of Israel are on the doorstep, just as the Bible predicted some 2,500 years ago. The Prophecy Watcher magazine includes the writings of dozens of prophecy experts like Gary Stearman, Mondo Gonzalez, L.A. Marzulli, Bill Salas, Josh Peck, and many others, writing on fascinating subjects like the Rapture, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Red Heifer, the World Economic Forum, the Global Reset, digital currency, the Mark of the Beast, the Nephilim, and the Antichrist's beast system of global control, things you will likely never hear about in church. 12 bonus DVDs will introduce you to Ezekiel's Gog and Magog War and the road to Armageddon. We'll examine the supernatural side of the Bible as we investigate controversial issues like the Nephilim, government UFO cover-ups, and the Shroud of Turin. We'll address the Luciferian Rebellion, a mutiny that changed heaven and earth forever. Speaking of heaven, you'll enjoy Mondo's glimpse into God's creation as he explores the stunning beauty of the stars and galaxies, seen through the lens of our Psalm 19 observatory cameras. 12 issues of the magazine, plus 12 bonus DVDs, a $180 value, now available for your gift of $50 to support our worldwide television outreach. Care to become a fellow Prophecy Watcher? Just visit our online bookstore at prophecywatchers.tv. Partner with us today and help us take the message of the soon return of Jesus to the whole world.
And we're back with Dr. Andy Woods, and we have a tome here. We have a work. But the thing about your book, The Coming Kingdom, that I like, yes, it is big. Don't let that scare you, because it's very, very logical, very easy to read, and you answer questions that aren't often answered. And that's what I want to get to with the rest of the program, because I want you to tell people why you were motivated to write this and what questions it answers.
Well, to be clear, I'm not the first teacher that's ever set out the doctrine of the kingdom like this. The view that I hold to, you can find in the works of G.N. Peters, more recently in the works of Alva J. McClain. His book,
Right.
The Greatness of the Kingdom is a classic. What makes my work different, though, is I took their conclusions and I sort of updated them against the flood of contemporary scholarship.
So it answers questions.
Yeah.
And criticisms.
Yeah.
And I like that. You don't hesitate to plunge right into a point that is disputed.
Right.
And with your opinion, which is, by the way, quite clear when you put it down. Again, I'm not exaggerating. Andy has a very clear way of putting his points that will delight you when you read the book.
Yeah, so part one of the book is tracing the doctrine of the kingdom from Genesis to Revelation. And in there, I'm trying to argue that the kingdom is completely and totally future. And I should be clear on something. When we say kingdom, there is always a sense in which God is reigning. That's called the universal kingdom. I'm not dealing with that topic in this book. What I'm dealing with is what's called the theocratic kingdom, where God the Father reigns through an intermediary, like he was in Eden. God was reigning through the first Adam. And the reason Satan took the form of a serpent in Genesis 3 is he's trying to get the intermediary, sometimes called the theocratic administrator, in this case Adam, to listen to creation i.e. a talking snake, instead of ruling over creation.
Uh-huh.
And once Adam did that, the theocratic kingdom, not the universal kingdom, but the theocratic kingdom was lost to the earth. And so the goal of history is how that structure is restored. And we do not believe it will be restored until God the Father
Wow.
reigns over the last Adam.
Well put. Now, so you go from the seed of the woman in
Yeah.
the Old Testament to the birth of Christ in the New Testament, and there's a trail you can follow.
Absolutely.
And it's headed where?
It's ultimately headed to God the Father reigning over the last Adam, Jesus Christ, who this time will not mess things up like the first Adam did. He can't mess things up
Right.
because he's God. So God the Father is going to rule over God the Son, who is going to rule over this earth. God cannot allow this earth to go out of existence until this structure is restored. And so that's the whole significance of the 1,000-year, millennial reign of Christ. And only when this structure is reasserted is now God declared the winner of history. And he can take this earth and destroy it by fire, 2 Peter 3, verse 10, and replace it with the new heavens and the new earth. And so we move from there, right into the eternal state. But the eternal state can't arrive until God's authority that was established in Eden over planet Earth is reasserted. And so that's why the 1,000-year reign of Christ, it has to hold a significant place in the believer's mind.
Indeed it does. And again, if you're listening to Andy Woods right now and you're saying, wow, that makes a lot of sense, you're sort of listening in on the way he writes, because his writing makes a lot of sense, and he addresses issues that are common issues that I'm sure you've dealt with. You've asked yourself, what happens here in the Bible? What happens then? Where am I going to go? What am I going to be doing in the kingdom? And I think those are all very important questions.
Yeah, because once you understand it, you understand where we've come from, where we're going, and how the present age, as wonderful it is as it is in the church age, is not to be confused with the millennial kingdom. And so part one of the book, I'm doing that Genesis to Revelation tracing. Part two of the book is what about this passage and what about that passage? Because there's some key passages people go to say, no, we're in the kingdom, the theocratic kingdom now. So I try to interact with those passages in part two. And then part three is who cares? So what? Why is this important? And in part three, I try to explain that many, many false teachings have come into the church through the misguided idea that they're somehow confusing the theocratic kingdom with the church age.
Now, you mentioned little disputes here and there. There's always a dispute about the rapture of the church. And when's it going to happen? And how's it going to happen? And you've heard all the arguments. In fact, you've written on this question. What's the best way to, in terms of the kingdom, what's the best way to answer the questions about the rapture of the church?
Well, it's kind of interesting that when you start studying the church fathers, when they started, you have the church fathers that immediately followed the apostles. As I understand it, those guys, typically embraced a future kingdom. But you have the rise of Augustine and kingdom now theology. And as that began to sweep the church, the idea that we're in the kingdom now, the hope of the rapture, expositions of John 14, 1 through 3, where, Jesus promised to come and get us before the wrath of God hits planet Earth, that type of teaching started to dwindle. Now that makes logical sense, because if we're in the kingdom now, or we're bringing in the kingdom, why in the world do I need Jesus to come back and rescue me? I mean, the planet's a great place.
Yeah.
But when you understand that we are not in the kingdom, in the theocratic kingdom sense, and in fact the kingdom that's actually being built right now is the Antichrist kingdom, via the New World Order.
And by the way, I just have to intercede here for just a second. You can see that particular
Absolutely.
kingdom growing exponentially.
Yeah.
It's a little scary to be alive right now.
It is, unless you understand it from the framework that we're speaking of here. But Daniel 2 and 7 is very clear. The Antichrist gets his day in the sun, temporarily.
Temporarily.
His kingdom comes first, but then there's a happy ending to it. The stone cut without human hands, Daniel 2, will shatter the Antichrist kingdom. And this is the millennial kingdom that we believe the stone cut without human hands represents. And it grows and grows and grows till it fills the whole earth. So if I believe that, suddenly the promise that Jesus gave us in the upper room, that he's coming to get us before the wrath of God hits planet Earth, suddenly that invitation starts to stand out to me. It's like a light shining in a dark place, because right now we're hurling towards the Antichrist kingdom, which must come first, and we are not in the theocratic kingdom yet.
Yeah, and conversation doesn't usually flow along these lines. You don't, when you're talking about the rapture of the church, you don't talk about the kingdom, and when you get into these little disputes, arguments, well, the Bible says this about the rapture, and I don't believe it's coming until so and so and so, and you've heard all these discussions. Right. But usually the subject that stays rather mute is anything about the kingdom.
Right.
And if you've got that straight, it'll help you get other things straight.
And that's the purpose of the book, is get the foundation right, and all these other heresies, as I'll call them, or false teachings, you can start to see through them. And we spend so much time as Christians kind of aiming at these false teachings that are out there without aiming our cannons at the foundation through which they grow. And I'm convinced, and that's why I wrote the book, that kingdom now theology is a tremendous seedbed for false teaching.
You're listening to Dr. Andy Woods, and I'll tell you what, when he writes, you pay attention. This book, and believe me, I've read it twice, and it takes you along a line, and if you just stay with his logic, you'll be amazed at what you see about some of the depths of Scripture. Andy, you've studied with some great men, and you pay honor to these men when you in this book, and I could tell you were listening carefully and critically before you wrote this book, and I love that about your writing. It's got a basis. It's not just Andy sits down to write.
Right.
You're writing on the basis of what some great men have said.
Yeah, and I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. I don't claim originality or novelty to a lot of the ideas presented there. I've contemporized it to kind of keep up with the modern criticisms of modern scholarship, but men, as I mentioned before, like G.N. Peters, Alva J. McLean, who I didn't study under, but I did study under Dr. Stanley Toussaint, who's now with the Lord. He clarified my thinking on the kingdom. I did study under a man named J. Dwight Pentecost, who clarified an awful lot for me.
We've all heard about him.
Yeah. And so I'm glad you said that I'm standing on the shoulders of giants.
Dr. Andy Woods, if you'd like his book, and I think you really would like his book, just stay with us for a moment. We'll tell you how you can get it.
When was the last time you heard a message on life in the 1,000-year millennium, the future kingdom of Jesus Christ? Do you wonder what you'll be doing in the kingdom age and how unsaved men and women fit into that picture? There's much confusion and great controversy in this area. Many believers don't believe in the millennium at all, while others think we're in the millennium right now. Kingdom Now theology is running rampant, a place where Israel and her role in Bible prophecy are nowhere to be found. Find clarity and sound doctrine in this 423-page masterpiece by Pastor Andy Woods. The Coming Kingdom is a comprehensive work that defends dispensationalism and Israel while clearly defining the foundational work of the Abrahamic covenant. Along the way, Andy addresses controversial issues like lordship salvation, the prosperity gospel, dominionism, the social gospel, and disagreements over when the church officially came into existence. The roles of Israel and the church are clearly defined and defended. This is a must-read for every serious believer. Don't miss out on this insightful exploration of biblical prophecy. The Coming Kingdom book is available for your gift of $30 or more. Just call the toll-free number on your screen 24/7 or visit our online bookstore at prophecywatchers.tv. And as always, shipping is included anywhere in the USA, and every order comes with a free bonus. If you are one of our international friends, please note that additional shipping fees will apply and all prices are in US dollars. We also have a special package offer that will make you an expert on the 1,000-year millennium. For your gift of $60 or more, we'd like to send you Andy's Coming Kingdom book, plus a special book and DVD from prophecy expert Bill Salas, The Millennium Prophecies. Just ask for the Heaven on Earth package, and we'll get these 3 valuable prophetic resources on their way to you. Your support is vital to Prophecy Watchers. Your support helps us to continue to bring you insightful and informative content like you saw today. Your help enables us to explore the mysteries of the Bible and prepare believers for what lies ahead. Join us in spreading the message of Christ's soon return to the world. Thank you for your support, and keep looking up.
Welcome back. We're talking with Dr. Andy Woods, and we're coming close to the end of our conversation here. I've got so many questions in my mind, so many features that I'd like to delve into. Give us just a cross-section of the coming kingdom. How is it structured? And I know it's going to be hard to do that in a minute or two, but a quick look.
Well, a quick look is part 1 of Bible study, Genesis 1 through Revelation 22. What does the Bible actually say about the kingdom? And it answers the question, are we in the theocratic kingdom now or not? I say no. Part 2 is, well, what about this passage or that passage? For example, Jesus said, the kingdom is in your midst. Some translations say the kingdom was within you. What do you do with that?
Yeah.
And I try to answer those passages in light of the structure that I presented in part 1. And then part 3 of the book is who cares, so what? And that's where I try to identify 9 false teachings that are prevalent in the church today based on the view that we're currently in the theocratic kingdom. I mean, the main point is the church gets very confused as to what its mission is in the earth now.
Yeah, and quickly, I'd like to say that I've seen churches get confused. I think we all have these days, and it's easy to head off into the economic weeds, or to head off into some private teaching that has a lot of shall we say, customer appeal. But to stay straight and true and head for the kingdom, it takes some study and it takes some discipline.
Yeah, and I don't, as the pastor of a local church, I don't waste a lot of my time preaching, let's bring in social justice, because I don't really see that as a function that the church can even do. At very best, we can slow down the progress of evil, but we're not going to bring in social justice the way the kingdom will when Jesus establishes it. So then what are we here for? Well, we're here to evangelize and disciple, to reach and then teach. That's our primary mission. And I think that way because of my understanding of the kingdom.
I like that, reach and teach.
Yeah.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah. And the church will get very confused on that and move into sort of social projects. That's why you hear so many sermons today about whatever the political cause of the day is. When you really dive down into the roots of it, these are folks that think they're bringing in the kingdom. I don't think we can achieve social justice on this earth until Jesus establishes it.
And you're looking for the Lord's return just like I am. Amen. And just like a lot of people are, and that's what we talk about here on Prophecy Watchers.
Right. And the kingdom that's being built today is the kingdom of the Antichrist. And we have the promise of Jesus that before that 7-year tribulation period elapses, where the Antichrist kingdom reaches its zenith, we have the promise that we're going to be rescued from that 7-year time period.
Thanks for making that clear. Dr. Andy Woods, his book, The Coming Kingdom. I'm Gary Stearman. Hey, you keep watching. We are.